Hello everyone, in this lecture we will continue our discussion of electromagnetic theory. Today we are going to discuss Coulomb's law. Suppose if there are two charges in space, suppose this is the Q1 and Q2 charge, and these two charges are separated by some distance r12, then there exists some type of force between these two charges, and these type of force working between those charged particles are between force between the charges are called electrostatic force. So force working between two charges are called electrostatic force, or you can say that a force acting between the charges, not only two charges, force acting between the charges are called electrostatic force. Now according to the Coulomb's, the magnitude of the force is proportional to the quantity of the charge q1 and q2, product of the charge quantity of the charge q1 and q2, and it is also inversely proportional to the separation between square of the separation between two charges. So Q1 and Q2 are the magnitude of the charges, so force is proportional to the product of the magnitude of the charges, and this force is also inversely proportional to the distance square of the distance between two charges. If you combine these two relations, so this relation 1 and 2 are according to Coulomb's law. So according to Coulomb's statement, force is proportional to the multiplication of the magnitude of the charges, and force is also proportional to the inversely proportional to the square of the distance between two charges. If you will combine these relation 1 and 2, you will get F12 is equal to K into Q1 Q2 divided by R12 square, where K is proportionality constant and it is defined as K is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught, where epsilon naught is permittivity of free space. Permittivity of free space. So what is the epsilon naught is the permittivity of free space, so you can write F12 is equal to K, let me add in place of K 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, so this is 1, okay, into Q1 Q2 by R12 square, and so in other words you can say that force is proportional to the product of the charges and inversely proportional to the square of the separation distance. So here epsilon naught value is equal to 8.85 into 10 to power minus 12 Coulomb square Newton per meter square. So this is square. So this is the mathematical form of Coulomb's law. So F between the charges can be attractive. It can be attractive and it can also be repulsive. It can be attractive and it can also be repulsive depending upon the sign of the charges. If the two charges Q1 and Q2 are of opposite sign, opposite means if one is positive and other is negative, then there will be a attractive force. Okay, but if both the charges q1 and q2 are of same nature, I mean of same sign, then the forces between them will be repulsive force. So suppose if one charge is negative and the charge is negative, then repulsive force will, if one charge is negative, other is negative, that is minus q and minus q1 minus q2, then there will be repulsive force. If it will be plus q1 and plus q2, then there will be repulsive force. Okay, if one is minus q1 and the other is plus q2, it is attractive. If first one is positive and second one is negative, then it will be again attractive. Therefore the forces may be attractive or repulsive depending upon the sign of the charges. So here I have not shown the vector. So here F12 is a vector quantity and the direction of this vector will be along r cap. So how will you define this unit vector? R cap is the unit vector along the direction of force. Suppose I have just written q1 and q2 without any coordinate axis, so you can assume some coordinate here. Okay, so here is q1 and here is q2. So its position vector may be small r1. Okay, let me denote it with small r1, and its radius position vector of q1 and q2 are r2. So r vector, this is your r vector, this is r1 vector, this is, sorry, small, this is r2 vector. So r vector is defined as uh, r2 minus r2 vector minus r1 vector. So I think there should not be any doubt. R1 is the position vector for charge q1, R2 vector is the position vector for charge q2, and R vector is the separation between two charges. So the force, direction of the force will be in the direction of r cap. So r cap is defined as r vector uh, r vector divided by magnitude of r vector. Okay, so from this expression r cap tells you about the direction and the nature. It will be attractive or it may be, the force may be attractive or repulsive depending upon the nature of the charge. Now let's discuss about the electric field. So far we have discussed that if there are two charges q and suppose the other is q naught and there are some separation between these two charges, so you simply said that the force between charges is given by 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q multiplied by q naught divided by r square. Okay, and the direction will be along r cap. So you may assume that this is the point A and this is a point P. Okay. Now let's so the force between two charges are actually two-step process. Now you can imagine a condition that at point P there are no charges. So in that condition, suppose at point A there is only one charges, and then now we have assumed that suppose there is one charge q at point A and there is no any other charge. Suppose that since this charge is present at point A, then what would be the effect at point P of this charge? Or you can say that what would be the effect of this charge at some other nearby distances? So the answer is Q produces a field called as electrostatic field in the nearby region, and when any charges comes in that region, it experiences a force given by F is equal to Q naught E. Here Q naught is some test charge. What I want to say here is that Suppose there is only one charge, then there must be some field around surrounding this charge. And when you bring some charge, so when you bring some charge at nearby points, let's say at point P, then the force works on that charge because of the field produced by the test charge, because of the field produced by the charge Q, and it will be given by F is equal to Q naught E. What is E? Is the electric field due to charge Q. So electric field due to charge E can be defined as the force working on per unit test charge. Suppose there is some charge Q, then it will produce a field, and this will produce an electric field. This electric field is the force per unit charge acting on any test charge. So again, all these are the vector quantity. So E and F are vector quantity. So now in this way we are now in a condition to define the electric field. So let's take the simple case for this. Suppose there is some charge Q and you bring a sum at r distance. Suppose at r distance there is some point P and you bring some test charge Q0 here. So in this case the electric field will be E at point P will be defined as F by Q. F by Q naught. So this bar means this is a vector quantity. Okay, I am not putting arrow here. So you can use arrow here or you can simply put some bar to just denote that this is a vector quantity. So electric field here is defined as force per unit test charge. So you know that if you bring some test charge Q0 at point P, then the force will be given by 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q into Q naught and divided by Q naught. So Q naught and Q naught will cancel each other and you will get 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q by, and this is R square. So you can write it Q square. So electric field due to the charge Q is given by 1 upon, this is a vector quantity, so 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q by R square, and direction will be along R cap. So this expression is the electric field. This expression is is the electric field of charge Q at distance R. So this expression gives the electric field due to charge Q at distance R. And but now suppose in a condition if there are so many discrete point charges. Let's suppose in space there are so many discrete point charges, that is Q1, Q2 and Q3. Okay. So if there are so many discrete point charges, so in that condition the total electric field at any point P, so there you know that the electric field is defined as this. So there will be some electric field because of, let's due to the charge Q1 there is electric field E1, and due to the charge Q2 at this point P, I am talking about for this particular point P, the electric field will be E2. Okay, and for due to charge Q3 electric field will be E3. Okay, so because of these three charges, only I have written only 3 here, but you can show Q4, Q5 and a similar way. So what would be net electric field because of the all discrete charges? Okay, so the net electric field due to the all discrete charges is given by the principle of superposition. So according to the principle of superposition, the total electric field will be given by electric field due to the charge 1 plus electric field resultant of the total electric field E2 plus E3 dot dot dot. If there are n charges, then you can write like this. Okay, so the total electric field can be calculated using the principle of superposition of forces. Now let me repeat it again with more clear diagram. As we have already discussed, we have talked. There are many charges, many discrete charges Q1, Q2, Q3, and Qn. So there are many discrete charges, and if you want to calculate the net electric field because of these discrete charges at point P, then the total electric field at point P will be given by superposition of by the principle of superposition, according to which E will be equal to E1 vector plus E2 vector plus E3 vector. Okay, if there are n charges, then it will be En vector. So what is E1? E1 is 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 by R1 chi square, and it will be R1 cap. E2 will be 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q2 by R2 chi square, R2 cap. Similarly, you can write for nth charges. Okay, electric field due to nth charges at point P will be given by 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Qn. And what is Rn? Rn is the distance from nth charge to point P. So you can write Rn square and distance will be Rn cap. This is the direction. Okay, so R1 is the separation between point P and Q1 charges, R2 is the separation between point P and Q2 charge, and R3 is the separation between point P and the position of Q3 charge. Okay, similarly Rn is the separation between the charge Q1, position of the charge Q1 with the test point P. So if you substitute these values in this equation, you'll get E is equal to the net electric field at point P will be given by the net electric field at point P due to the discrete charges will be given by E vector is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught, and there will be summation that is I is equal to 1. 1 stands for Q1 up to nth charge, and it will be Qi by Ri chi square, and direction will be along the Ri cap. So I is for ith charge. I may be from 1 to n. So for first charge it is Q1, and distance between the charge between the point P and charge is R1, and Ri is the Ri cap is the direction from Q1 to P. So if it is the ith charge, so it will be from Qith charge to point P. So I think there should not be any doubt. So this is the electric field because of the n discrete charges at some point of space P. Now let me again clear it. What is I? So what is Ri? Suppose this is ith charge. Let me write it as Qi, and its position vector is from origin, that is R dash. Okay, let's you can call it Ri dash, or simply suppose you want to evaluate at point P, so the position vector for this you can write it simply R. Okay, R vector, and this is Ri for ith charge, and you can write R as, okay, this is your Ri. So Ri is defined as Ri is the vector quantity. It is defined as R vector minus Ri dash vector. So Ri dash is the position vector for ith charge, and R is the point where R is the vector position vector for the point P where you want to calculate the electric field. So far we have discussed the electric field calculations mainly for discrete point charges, but in actual problem the charges may have some type of distribution. It may be distributed over some surfaces, some volume. So you can assume that the charge is there is contribution distribution of the charges over some volume, surface, or along a wire. So in so this discussion was only for point charges. So next we are going to discuss about the electric field, calculation of electric field due to the continuous charge distribution over some volume, surface, or wire. So let's discuss the first case of line charge distribution. So you may find a case where some charge q is distributed over the length of some wire. Suppose these are the points of the wire A and B, and the charge is uniformly distributed over this length of wire A from A to B. Now in this case, so some charge is distributed over. So what would be electric field at some point P because of this charge distribution, that is continuous charge distribution over the length of a wire. So in order to calculate the electric field, we'll take the small element of this length. So let it a small element dl. So because of dl will first calculate electric field at point P. So because of this small length segment dl, the electric field at this point P will be d, and d will be equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught dq by r square. What is r? R is the distance between this length element to the point P, and the direction will be along the r cap. So what is dq here? Here dq is lambda dl. So what is lambda? Lambda is some function of r dash, some function of position, that is the line charge density. We call lambda is line charge density. So the electric field can be written as, so what is r dash? R dash is the position vector r dash. This is r dash, okay, and this is r, where this is r. You can assume this is r vector, means where the position vector of the point where you want to calculate the electric field P, and r dash is the uh, position vector of this length element. So the electric field that we have written can be written as, due to this length element, is equal to 1 upon 4 epsilon naught lambda dl by lambda is lambda r dash, because this charge is may be uniformly distributed and may not be uniformly distributed as some function of r dash. So you can write it lambda dl by r square. Okay. Now if you want to calculate the electric field at point P due to the whole length of this wire, so you need to integrate the electric field over length segment dl. So this is because this is the electric field due to the length dl. So if you integrate the contribution of all the small length element, you will get the required electric field at point P. So you can write total electric field E as integrating from A to V, and your integrand will be lambda dl by r square. So here one point you should note here is that dl is a vector element, vector quantity. So dl is also a vector. Okay, so if you are writing, no, it's no, there is no need to have the vector notation because we have already taken the direction in r cap. So it is the simple, we have to integrate length element. So the in this case the electric field at position r will be, r vector will be defined as integration from a to b 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught, and lambda is uh, r dash vector divided by r square dl dash. So using this formula you can calculate the electric field at point P due to the charge distribution along the length AB. So lambda may be the constant, may not be the constant, depending upon the its position, depending upon the charge density function. So again E is the vector. Now suppose that the charge is distributed over some surface. Okay, there may be the case now that charge q is distributed over some surfaces. Okay, so how will you calculate? In this case again you may assume coordinate axis x, y and z, and you can take a small element here, that is surface element. You can take a surface element dA, surface element dA dash, call it dA dash because I am pointing it from origin as r dash vector. Okay, so dash coordinate only for the charge distribution, and in real space I will not use the dash. Okay, so just to distinguish between the point where we are want to calculate the electric field and how the charge distribution is given by the dash coordinates. So r dash is the position of this surface element, and the charge of this surface element will be given by sigma as a function of r dash. Charge distribution is also a function of some point in space, so you can write dq is equal to sigma r dash into dA dash. This is the area, and what is this? This is surface charge density, surface charge density. So this is the small element dq. You can calculate at any point P the electric field. The point P position vector may be r vector. So in this case the electric field will be given by 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught dq by, and this distance is r vector, r square. Okay, and direction will be along r cap. So the net electric field will be given by, because of the integration of this charge element over the whole surface. Okay, so we have taken the small contribution of this surface. We can take the whole contribution by integrating over r dash coordinates. So you can write it here as, sorry, what I want to say is that if there are some surfaces, okay, and the charge is distributed over this surface and you want to calculate some electric field at point P, then how will you calculate? In this case, similar as in the case of we have taken the case of line charge distribution, we can assume that the surface, there is some charge density, and you can take a small surface element dA dash, and because of this dA dash there will be some charge in this surface element, and this will be given as dq is equal to sigma r dash dA dash. Okay, so the electric field due to this surface element can be given as d is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught dq divided by r square, and its direction will be along r cap. So we will not bothering about direction because we will calculate some other way. So the total electric field at point P can be calculated by integrating this term, this expression over the entire surface where the charge is distributed. So net electric field is given by 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught integrating over whole surface, and you can write it sigma r dash by r square, okay, and r cap d dash. So direction will be, because we are integrating 1 by 1, not this is the r vector, so here you can also add r cap, okay. Similarly, you can write you can assume, similarly you can do the can obtain the expression for electric field for volume charge distribution. Suppose you imagine there are some volume, okay, over the at which the charge is distributed. So in that case, similar as we have done earlier, we can write the electric field expression for electric field as 1 upon 4 pi, 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught rho r dash r cap d tau dash pi r square. So what is d tau? Is some volume element, okay. D tau is some volume element, as we have taken such charge element at surfaces. So dq will be given by rho r dash d tau dash, okay. So now in this way we have three expressions, one for line charge distribution, what is this? This is defined as electric field due to line charge distribution can be given as ER is equal to 4 pi epsilon naught lambda r dash r cap dl dash divided by r square. Dl dash is the length element, lambda r dash is the line charge density, r cap denotes the direction along in which at which force is acting, r is the separation between the element charge element to the point where we have to calculate the electric field. Similarly, we can write it for surface charge distribution, surface charge distribution, that will be E vector r is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught sigma r dash r cap d dash divided by r square. And similarly you can write for volume charge distribution, that will be ER is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught rho r dash by r square r cap d tau dash. So here for line charge distribution we have this expression, that is the line integral, this is the surface integral, and this is the volume integral, okay. So here you have to integrate the over a length of line, here you have to integrate over a surface, here you have to integrate over a volume where the charge distributed. What is lambda? Lambda is the line charge density, sigma is the surface charge density, and rho is the volume charge density. So these are the expressions that we can use for calculating the electric field due to the continuous charge distribution over line, over surface, or over volume. So far we have discussed about the expression of electric fields that can be used to calculate that can be used to compute the electric fields of different type of charge distributions. Now we'll discuss how this field can be represented. There are various methods that can be used to represent the electric field. Suppose let's start with the point charge Q. Suppose if there is some point charge Q, and then its electric field will be given by 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught q by r square r cap. Okay, so one model may be to, since this electric field have a magnitude and direction also, so you can use arrows to denote its directions. Okay, and you can shorten the length of arrows as you increase, as you go away from the origin of this charge. So in this way you can represent the field lines of this of the electric field produced by this charge q. Okay, so this representation is the field line diagram. In this representation, this is one model. In this representation, direction denotes the direction of electric field, arrow denotes the direction of electric field, and size of the arrow denotes the strength of the field. But this drawing this type of picture is very, drawing this type of diagram is very hectic. So there may be some other models that can be used to describe the field lines of electric field. So one method may be simple method, you have already done it in your intermediate. That is, suppose there is some charge, you can simply draw the field lines like this. Okay, so in this representation, arrow tells you about the direction of the field. Okay, that is r cap, but the magnitude, this representation also gives about the information about the magnitude of the field. Here is also, as you go away from the origin, length of the arrow becomes shorter, hence you say that the strength is decreasing. So in this representation also you can get information about the strength of the field. So here arrow is representative of direction of electric field vector. So arrow is representative of direction of electric field vector and magnitude of the field. Magnitude of the field is indicated by the density of lines. So here in this representation, arrow is representative of direction of electric field vectors and magnitude of the field is indicated by density of lines. Suppose there are 5 lines. If you can assume that there are 5 lines passes through the spherical surface. Since it is a some point charge, so the electric field lines may be drawn as a radius vector at all the points, for all the points of the surface. So you may assume a spherical surface. So if 5 lines passes through the particular spherical surface of radius r. So you may assume that you have some spherical surface of radius r. Okay, then of radius r, then the density of line is given by density of line is given by 5 by 4 pi r square, which goes like 1 by r square. So here in this representation, arrow is representative of direction of the electric field and magnitude of the field is indicated by density of lines. So how? So if there are 5 lines, suppose in this example there are 8 lines, suppose there are 5 lines, because I have done limited numbers, so you can try many numbers. So there are, suppose you can assume there are 5 lines passing through this spherical surface, then the density of lines is given by number of lines, total number of lines divided by area of that surface. So that is 5 by 4 pi r square. So density of lines is 5 by 4 pi r square. And you know that your electric field, that is E, is also goes like 1 by r square. Okay, E is proportional to 1 by r square. So density of lines can be used to represent the strength of the electric field. Okay, so the magnitude of the field is indicated by the density of lines. So in this representation, the density of lines tells you about the strength of the field. So as you go further away from the origin, okay, as suppose you are here, so you say if you draw some surface, okay, surface area, number of lines may be 1. If you means suppose you are, this is your surface, so here 2, but if you draw the same surface here, there is a possibility that no lines will pass through this surface. So the number of density of lines is decreasing as you go away from the origin. Hence the density of lines can be approximated as the electric field. Okay, so in this representation, arrow is representative of direction of electric field and magnitude is given by density of lines. Clear? Now we are in a condition to discuss electric fields. So in this model, what is arrow? Direction tells you the direction. Arrow tells you the direction of electric field. Direction of electric field. And density of lines, that is total number of lines divided by 4 pi r square, gives you the strength of the field. Strength of the field. So in this model, so in this field diagram model, we can say that E is number of lines per unit area. So phi is the total number of lines divided by total area is can be taken as the strength of the field. So E can be considered as a number of lines per unit area. So if since you are dividing with 4 pi r square, so this gives I the total number of lines and 4 pi r square is the total area. So when you divide it, it gives the number of lines per unit area. Okay, so if E is the electric flux density and is what is E is electric flux density, if E is electric flux density, and if d phi is lines passing through a, suppose you have taken some area dA, okay, suppose this is dA, if total number of lines are 5, so in a small area how many lines will pass? d5 lines. So if d5 lines are passing through a surface area, lines passing through surface area dA, then how will you define E? E is defined as number of lines per unit area. So d5 lines are passes through dA. Okay. So d5 number of lines passing through a small area can be given as E multiply, here dA is a vector quantity, okay, dA surface element is a vector quantity and E is also vector quantity. So d phi number of lines can be given as the dot product E vector dot dA vector, okay. So d phi is the total number of lines passing through a surface dA. So since this is the d phi is the number of lines passing through a infinitesimal area dA, uh, dA, so you can say that the total number of lines, that is total number of lines passing through a surface can be given as E dot integration. So here d phi is the number of lines passing through a area dA. The total number of lines passing through the entire surface is given by integrating E dot dA over the entire surface, and therefore the phi flux, electric flux, we call it electric flux, that the electric flux is given by E dot dA. So this is electric flux. What is electric flux? Total number of lines passing through a surface is called electric flux. So let me define it again. The total number of lines passing through any surface is called electric flux or number of field lines, and it is given by phi. This is the surface integral, okay, dA is the surface element. So E dot dA integrating over some surface gives you the electric flux. So now this is electric flux. So how electric flux is defined? Total number of lines passing through any surface is called electric flux. Now one point that you should note here is that so in this representation we have drawn the number of lines. Suppose we have drawn suppose if for Q charge you have drawn n lines, okay, then for 2Q charge you must draw 2n lines. This suggests that the flux through any closed surface is measure of total charge inside. So flux is proportional to the Q enclosed, okay, and that is phi E can be given as Q enclosed by epsilon naught, okay, and you know the phi is, phi is closed integral E dot dA, and this is Q enclosed by epsilon 0. This is your Gauss law. This is Gauss law. So what is Gauss law? The Gauss law tells you that total electric flux passing through a closed surface is equal to the total charge enclosed by that surface. It means that if there are some closed surface, and then the total electric flux means total number of lines passing through this surface is equal to the total charge. Suppose the surface and it is enclosing some volume V, so the total number of charge enclosed by this volume is proportional to the electric flux, or you can say that total electric flux passing through a closed surface is equal to the total charge enclosed by that surface. So this is the famous Gauss law, okay. So this is you have obtained by just qualitative, that if for Q there is n lines, then for TQ there will be 2n lines, hence phi is, that is electric flux, should be proportional to the charge. So you have written that the phi is phi, if you remove the proportionality constant you will get some constant. So in this way you can write Gauss law. But you can also obtain this relation quantitatively. So we have obtained this relation using field line diagram. Now let's make a little bit quantitative. So first we'll start with a very simple case that there is some charge q and q produces some electric field E is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught q by r square. So we are taking the simplest case, there is one charge situated at some origin and E is equal to electric field, magnitude of the electric field will be given by 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q by r square. So what is our purpose? Our purpose is to get this relation using some quantitative analysis. So as you know that the electric flux E, that is total number of lines, is defined as we have just discussed. The electric field is defined as E dot dA. Okay, and you know that what is E here? So E direction is r cap. The direction of this is r cap. So you can write it in place of E 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught q by r square. Okay, you are suppose you are getting some point at point P, distance is r, so you can write it 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught q by r square, and direction will be along r cap. R cap is a unit vector in spherical polar, radial unit vector in spherical polar coordinates. Okay, r cap, and you have to take the dot product with the surface element. Okay, and you know that in spherical polar coordinates dA vector is equal to r square sine theta d theta d phi and r cap. Okay, we have already you have already read this in vector calculus, but you can just substitute here, so using that relation. So you can write here 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught q by r square, and you will have r square sine theta d theta d phi, and r cap dot r cap will be, that is, there is one vector and there is one vector involved here, so the dot product for this r cap dot r cap will be equal to 1. Okay, so you can write simply this integral. So here you can see here that variables are theta and t phi, so you have to integrate over at the surface of space. So if you will do the calculation, so actually this is double integral type now, because there are two variables theta and phi. If you will integrate, so double integral, so you will have a variation of theta from 0 to, sorry, you can take the variation of limits for theta is equal to, you have to integrate theta is equal to 0 to pi and phi to 0 to 2 pi. So you can write here 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught q by r square sine theta d phi. R square and r square will cancel each other. Okay, so you can just integrate. So you have to integrate 0 to 2 pi d phi. You can separate the integral because there is no common function. Okay, and you can write 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught will come out of the integral, q will also, and you have sine theta, you have to integrate it from the limit 0 to pi. So you are integrated in spherical polar coordinates, no? And this is the surface element in spherical polar coordinates. Okay, so if you will integrate, you will get q upon 4 pi epsilon naught into 2 pi, and when you will do it, you will get, so if you will integrate it, you will get 2, hence you will have a 4 pi will cancel, you have q by epsilon naught, sorry. So if you will integrate it, you will get you integrate d phi, so this is your spherical coordinates, and this is your surface element dA is equal to r square sine theta d phi, and its direction is away from the radius, and its direction is r cap. Okay, and this angle is theta, x, y and z. Okay, this angle is theta, and if you draw the projection here like this, so this angle is your phi. This is azimuthal angle and this is vertical polar angle. So theta variation, in order to cover the entire surface, since we are integrating over the surface of this sphere, so in order to integrate the entire surface, you have to take the limit theta from theta is equal to 0 to theta is equal to pi. Okay, the theta varies from 0 to pi in order to cover the entire surface, and you take the phi from 0 to 2 pi. So in this integration it will cover the entire surface. So you will get after integrating, you get phi is equal to E dot dA equal to q by epsilon naught. This is the same thing, that is Gauss law. Gauss law tells you the total electric flux passing through a closed surface is equal to the total charge enclosed by that surface. This was for the single charge which was sitting at the origin. Now suppose that in this volume, instead of a single charges, there are bunch of charges scattered in this volume. So according to the principle of superposition of total field is vector sum of all the individual fields. So far we have taken the simplest case in which only one charge was situated at the origin, and we have calculated the electric flux, and we have obtained that phi is equal to E dot dA, and this gives you q by epsilon naught. Now let's see if instead of a single charge there are a bunch of charges scattered in this volume. So according to the principle of superposition, the total field vector is given by the sum of electric field vectors of the individual charges. So you can write if EI is the electric field due to a ith charge, so if there are n charge, you can write I is equal to 1 to n. This is principle of superposition. So you can write electric flux phi as E vector dot D vector, okay, is equal to phi summation over I to n. Substitute in place of E. This is a total electric field. So since you are interested in calculating the electric flux, so electric field, you need to substitute E from this equation. From the principle of superposition, you will obtain E. So you can write it here, EI dot dA vector. Okay. Since this integration is over the surface, and this summation is over the charges, so you can take out the summation from the integral, and you can write it I is equal to 1 to n, and you can equally write phi is equal to EI vector dot dA vector, and this gives, you have already evaluated that for an ith charge, that is for a single charge, this is equal to q by epsilon, that is qi by epsilon naught, and you have to sum. Okay, I think there should not be any doubt. So this is your electric flux. We can, since these are at the integration is over the surface and summation is over the charges, so we can take the charges out of the integral, and you can take the summation out of this integral, and if you integrate this term, that is the electric field of ith charge, and take dot product of this over some surface element and integrate over entire surface, you will get from this relation. You can write it, that is qi by epsilon naught, and if you, that is epsilon naught, and this summation I is equal to 1 over qi. Okay, So ith charge, and you are summing it from I is equal to 1 to n. So this gives you q enclosed, means summation over ith means one charge, two charge, there are n number of charges you may assume. So this is the total charges, q enclosed, total charges enclosed divided by epsilon naught. Okay, so from here you can obtain the Gauss law. Gauss law is defined as q enclosed by, so this is how quantitatively you have obtained this Gauss law. So we have established this by assuming the point charges, but you can do it for some continuous charge distribution. Suppose there is some volume charge distribution, then q enclosed will be given by rho d tau integration over the entire volume V, and d tau is, what is rho? Rho is the volume charge density, d tau is the volume element, and if you integrate you will get the total charge enclosed by the volume. Okay, so q enclosed is given by, for a volume charge distribution like this, and for surface it can be surface charge density d tau dA, there may be some surface, yeah, it may be line charge. Okay, you can write like this, na, lambda dl. So whatever with the charge distribution, we have to worry only about the total enclosed charges. So the Gauss law, Gauss law is totally only concerned about the total charges enclosed. Okay, so this expression that we have established quantitatively is called Gauss law. This is Gauss law, and this is the Gauss law in integral form. Gauss law in integral form. Okay, because of this symbol, you know, you are integrating. Okay, so this is the Gauss law in integral form. Okay, E is the vector, dA is also the vector. Clear here. So now you can write it in differential form also. So how will you write? Suppose this is a surface integral. Okay, closed integral over some surface E dot dA. So you can convert this surface integral into volume integral. How? From the divergence theorem. Okay, so from the divergence theorem, from Gauss divergence theorem, this is the famous theorem of vector calculus, Gauss divergence theorem. Okay, that you will read this theorem in mathematics. So I am only writing here the relation. So from divergence theorem we know if f is a vector integrating over some surface, okay, then this surface integral can be converted into the volume integral by taking the divergence. Okay, what is del? As we have already discussed, divergence of f. Divergence means del is defined as x cap del by del x in Cartesian coordinates plus y cap del by del y and z cap del by del z. Okay, so del is the vector derivative, so divergence of f, so you can use this relation. Okay, so if you use this relation to convert the surface integral into the volume integral, you will get here, so it will be, can be written as divergence of E vector. Okay, and this integral will be now changed to the volume integral. Okay, so you can write here is as divergence of E dot d tau. Okay, there should not be problem. And in place of q enclosed by epsilon naught, you can write, as we have discussed here, this is rho d tau. Okay, now this term and this term, if you get this term, you will get. Okay, so let me write it here. Okay, if you equate these two terms, you will get divergence of E is equal to, okay, rho by epsilon naught, because you are integrating over volume in both sides, so you can take divergence of E is equal to rho by epsilon. So this equation, divergence of E is equal to rho by epsilon, is called Gauss law in differential form. This is Gauss law in differential form. So this is what we discussed about the Gauss law and electric field. So this is your Gauss law in integral form, and this is Gauss law in differential form. Okay, because we have here the derivative, vector derivative here, na? So this symbol tells you about this is the differential form. So this you can use to solve the problems of both the form. So how we have obtained this? So we have used this Gauss law integral form, and we have applied the Gauss divergence theorem to convert the surface integral into the volume integral, and then equated with the expression for volume charge distribution. Okay, so if you equate, so this integral is also over the some volume. D tau is volume element. So if you equate both sides, you will get this relation. So I think I should stop here.